And good morning. Welcome to today's session on cross-selling, converting part-time clients into 100% full-time clients. I'm Clifton Warren, principal of Corporate Eye Consulting. Cross-selling is one of those topics that's often spoken about, often wished for, but poorly executed. And so today I want to give you a framework to help you to hope to do cross-selling a little bit more effectively in your organization. It is still one of the most powerful ways to drive organic growth within your business. And so today I want to cover five things. How to build an exit strategy around your top clients. I'm also going to show you a six-step client process for both retaining clients and developing client service plans, which is our third area we're going to cover. I'm going to cover some techniques on how to implement the program for your business. And finally, a formula I call the continual improvement cycle, how you can use that to drive continued growth for your business. So when it comes to cross-selling, there are five reasons why you need to have 100% full-time clients. And the title of this is Cross-Selling, Converting Your Part-Time Clients to 100% full-time clients. Number one, it improves retention, particularly around your top clients. And this is focusing on your top 20% clients that are generating 80% of your revenue. Secondly, it generates better quality referrals. I've met some professionals that were bragging about how many referrals they actually were receiving. However, when you break it down, they were getting referrals, okay, but they were referrals to the wrong type of business. It was poor quality business, very labor intensive, and low return. But when you're able to convert your clients to 100% full-time clients, you're going to get better referrals, higher quality referrals that leads to long-term business growth. Third, as I indicated before, it is one of the best ways to drive organic growth through your business. You're growing organically versus acquired. So there's a lot of businesses out there today that are acquiring new companies, and that's great. It's part of a growth strategy. But sooner or later, you have to take care of your own backyard. And organic growth is just that, selling more to existing clients. And from that growth drives referrals. Number four, it's the ability to replicate your top 20% of your client base. Your top 20% of your client base generates 80% of your revenue. Therefore, by using cross-selling, by converting your clients to 100% clients, when you get those referrals, they're more likely going to be lookalikes of those top 20% of your clients. And finally, to maximize the long-term value of your business. When you have great retention, high-quality referrals, good organic growth, and good processes in place to replicate on a continual basis your top clients, you have a business that is worth a premium. And there are firms that will pay a lot of money for businesses like that. So a concept that I like to often talk about is building exit rings around your top clients. And you can use exit rings, you can use steel barriers, steel walls. I like the word phrases or levels. But, your client, if you look at this visual here, your client's in the center, the blue part there, and all the other layers around there are exit rings. The stronger those rings, the stronger those walls, the less likely a competitor can get in and take your client. So exit rings is really about protecting the revenue from your top clients. I once had a airline years ago that I was targeting when I was in the field. And in this particular case, the holding broker let his guard down and left the door open for me. And I was able to slip right through and got right up to the client. In other words, I slipped right through all these different so-called barriers they had and got right up to the client, to the point to where I forced the client in a nice way to take the account to market. There was only two people, myself and the holding broker for that particular account. This is an account that was worth several millions of dollars. The a client, the airline, decided to stay with their existing broker with some warnings. And I know from then on, they tightened up their processes because they were wondering how could someone penetrate all that. And so you want to make sure that when you build exit rings around your clients, that they are solid and it locks out your competitors. I'm going to show you how to do that through the rest of this session. So the first step of converting your part-time clients to 100% clients, you need to have a 100% client retention process. Now, there's two sales processes that you have. For those of you that have heard me before on some of these sessions, you have a client acquisition process. That's the process, the steps that you use to identify, build relationships with, and acquire brand new business. The second part of that process is how you retain those clients, how you develop those, how do you sell more to them, and that's called a client retention process. And there are 6 phases to that. There's the planning phase, followed by the continuation phase. Then we move into the midterm phase, advisory phase, review phase, and event phase. Now I'm going to unpack each of these for you and show you what they look like and walk you through it. Now, you don't have to use exactly this model, but this model that I have developed for other firms that I've shown have produced tremendous results for them over the years in driving organic growth revenue. So stage 1 is the planning phase. And this is the phase to where you are sitting down with at the beginning of the year. You know, phase 1 does not involve the client at all, the planning phase. You do this internally with yourself, with your team. And you're going through a checklist. And some of the questions you ask yourself, you know, has the client initiated or acted on the recommendations during the year? You know, if you've worked with the client, if you made some recommendations to them, have they followed them? Have they been able to execute them? Have there been any obstacles that prevented that? You know, could be cash flow, could be business concerns. Does the client require any additional solutions? So you're looking back on the year of the client, their industry, the marketplace, you know, what's taking place, what additional solutions they may have. An important question to ask, question number 4 there, how many referrals and introductions did you receive last year? And finally, is this count under threat from a competitor? So this is an internal checklist that you do at the beginning of the year with you, either yourself or your team. I actually recommend that you sit down with someone else, even if you are a solo operator or run a division by yourself, brainstorm with others as a sounding board, because you want to make sure that you got your bases covered. You haven't left anything unchecked. And so this is a great checklist to use at the beginning of the year, and it helps you to plan out the rest of your interactions with the client. Step 2 is the continuation phase. So you've done the planning phase, continuation phase. That is just that. You are continuing the relationship. And your continuation phase involves what I call putting together the client service plan. Now, the client service plan is something that's often neglected. Some industries are mandatory. They have to collect information on the client. So for instance, a wealth advisor, a financial planner, they need to collect certain types of information from the client to understand the risk, to recommend solutions for them. Insurance people need to collect certain types of information to help their carriers, underwriters evaluate the risk. I'm going way above that because this is about client service plans and client retention. I want to know everything possible about my client. So if you're using any kind of contact management system or CRM, this chart here will give you some of the fields that you should probably consider populating in your accounts. So first thing I want to know is background information. I want to know the client's contact details, email, employees, you know, when is their financial year end, and how long they've been a client for. Moving on to the next step there on the right-hand side, the financial history for the past 3 years. You know, what revenue have they generated, you know, for you over the last 3 years? What types of services have you provided? And what is the class of services that those provided in? So if you're an insurance person, it might be property liability, personal lines. If you're a wealth advisor, it might be insurance. It might be some risk management. It might be self-managed superannuation. Whatever it is, you want to certainly list the revenues and where they came from. And of course, revenue by solution is just to further breaking that down even further. And particularly if you sell multiple lines to clients. Where's that revenue coming from? So you can really take a look at one client and get a good eye where they are. That's going to help you identify any additional solutions that they may need. Now, key decision makers. Now, for a business client, this is essential. There's two types of key decision makers. There are internal key decision makers. That's your buyer. It could be any number of people in the organization involved. And external, it could be their accountant, their lawyer, and family business. It could be Uncle Joe. It could be a number of things. So you want to make sure you've identified each of those people. You want the name, title, and contact details, because there's going to be occasions where you may need to present your findings to each of those people. Several years ago, I was going after a government department, and it turns out there's 2 or 3 internal buyers there. There's a couple of external buyers there. Won that business, once again, is worth several millions of dollars, simply because we're able to cater and adjust our presentation for each of those key decision makers to get them on board. On the bottom left-hand side there, you want to identify the key trusted advisors. Some of those could be part of the external decision makers, but you certainly want to know who the attorney is, the accountant, the banker, insurance, competitor advisors, and others. I once worked on an account years ago, and this firm had 2 insurance advisors on there. One was to place the risk, and the second one was to evaluate the work that the other one was doing. Once again, once we knew who they were, we knew who we were dealing with and how to position ourselves. But the bankers and all these people, they not only are great sources of information, they can be potential centers of influences for you and referral sources. Secondly, moving up from there, the nature of the operations, moving up on the bottom left side there, what are the markets served? Who are the target markets and the key client personnel? Next, there are opportunities and client goals, both for the short term and long term. What are they? And actions, recommendations. What recommendations do you have to help them improve or expand relationships, expand their services, leverage existing relationships, upgrade staff skills, align disciplines? What do you need to do to help you better service this client? And finally, you want to set up what I call your client library. So for every top 20% client, your key clients, you certainly should have if they're publicly listed, their annual report and financial statements. Depending on the type of things you're doing for them, financial statements, you might be able to, there should be a normal course of things you get each year. Org charts, client alerts, announcements, articles, letters, reports. You want to have all that stuff readily handy available in the appendix and reference section. And that's a client service plan. That's a very good client service plan that will stand you in good stead. That will enable you to now set goals, outline what you want to achieve with this particular client. Now, once again, if you have a CRM system, this is a template on what to set up in your information system. So when you're having a continuation checklist, here's some basic questions you want to ask. Have you established a meeting date with the client? I believe all retention, which is renewal business, should be handled 90 to 120 days out. And the reason why I advocate that is that if there's a problem on that account, I want to know about it sooner rather than later. Waiting 30 days before the renewal date is too late. If I'm under attack or if there's a problem, they're not happy with the service, I really know 3 or 4 months out so I can take action to try to correct it. It helps to send a client pre-meeting information checklist. And that's simply so they have all the information there. I know one life insurance top performer that regularly sends his clients a renewal checklist. And so when he does their annual review with them, they have all the information ready. Updated wills, updated insurance policies, car, auto, whatever they've done. All that's there so everyone can have a great focused conversation. The client service form that we just looked at earlier, it's not a matter of doing it once. This is something that you can continually work on. At least annually, you want to review it and update it to make sure everything's accurate. And finally, have you anticipated any client concerns or questions? You don't want any surprises. And I've always said that good accounts do not walk out the door. immediately. It's a gradual process that happens over time. You miss a promise here and there, and before you know it, these things are built up. So this is the little checklist you want to use at your continuation meeting with the client, which is about 90 days beforehand. The goal there is to bed down the relationship, handle the renewals, and make sure the relationships is continuing to move forward. Okay, the third step is what I call the midterm phase. And funny enough, this is something that is often missed. And when I have developed this for firms, when I've seen other firms do this, it has tremendous results. A lot of people do step 2, continuation phase, really well, but they leave off the midterm and the advisor phase, which I want to go through shortly. So the midterm phase is just that. It's a midterm review with your client. You don't want to do it at the continuation phase because there's too many things happening. You're trying to renew business. Sometimes terms might change, the risk might have changed. You're really just trying to bed down the risk and get that done. Midterm review is a chance to catch your breath. Take the client out to lunch, over a cup of coffee, and you can start to update your information. That's what it is, an update information. So firstly, have you established a mid-review date with your client? Have you identified information gaps in your client? In other words, when you look at the client service form and your CRM system, what are the gaps in your knowledge that you need to have? And that's the time to get at the midterm review. Have you identified additional products or services your client could benefit from? Now, going back to those client service plans, one of the benefits of doing those is that it enables you to brainstorm and be creative. You can come up with ideas of how you can add additional value to that particular client. Secondly, or fourthly, you want to ask for referrals and introductions to 2 or 3 friends or colleagues who could benefit from your offering. Always be asking for referrals. Midterm review is the ideal time to ask for referrals. And probably the most critical part of this whole thing is obtaining the name of your client's trusted advisors, their CPA or their banker or lawyer. And the reason why you're going to do that, I'm going to discuss just next, is that that's really how you start generating high quality referrals and cementing the client relationship in. Because that leads us to step number 4. See, once I've done the midterm review, during that midterm review, I'm going to ask the client, if I don't already have it, the names of their trusted advisor. More than likely, that's going to be the CPA or accountant. And the reason why I want that is twofold. Firstly, I want to make sure that I haven't missed anything. So I'm saying to my client, I'd like to meet with your accountant, show them the program I put together for you. I like to make sure I have not missed anything along the way. Now, my second reason for doing this is that I want to build a relationship with his or her accountant. And the reason why is that I want to show them, firstly, the program I put together. But secondly, I want to sell myself to that particular trusted advisor because I want them to think, wow, my other clients aren't getting this sort of service. I wonder if he can help my other clients. So it's a chance to develop a solid series of influences and referrals along the way. So your advisor checklist, treat the trusted advisor as a peer who you have mutual client interests. You're non-competing professionals. So therefore, you're a peer. Just like a doctor refers someone on to a neurosurgeon or the heart specialist, they're peers and they have a mutual client and they're serving the client's best interests. Secondly, share your client's service program overview. Discuss each step, everything you put together with them. Ask them their opinion. Thirdly, this is how you start to build a relationship. Invite the trusted advisor to your office. Show him or her around. Meet, if you're not the principal, let them meet the leadership team around your office. I'm selling them the whole time. I'm selling them on the idea that I'd love to do business with this firm. My clients can benefit from this type of service. Discuss your client's program and seek their opinion. So I'm not telling, I'm showing, and I'm asking their opinion. And I've seen these in a lot of cases. The accountant will say, you've covered most bases. However, we just bought another business. We just won a new contract over here, or we're just doing some negotiations in Europe and the Middle East. Those are things you want to know about because you can add those to the program. And then finally, you want to offer to meet again through the year with this accountant to discuss your firm's value offering. And sometimes these professionals need their own continual education. You can provide that for them by bringing them into office, meet the leadership team, and just explaining to them some of the new offerings. I was just reading a report today how one of the top 5 concerns for a lot of CEOs is cyber risk. That's a great topic to bring up with the CPA or an accountant, and talk about some of the solutions and how you cover those. Okay, step 5 is the review phase. And this is the phase to where after you met with the advisor, you want to go back and update your client. And you want to, and this is the cross-sell phase also. So let's go back. You've done the planning, you've bid down the renewal, you've done a midterm review to update your information, got the name of the advisor, met with the advisor has come up with some additional ideas, you've had additional insights. Now you're going back to your client and you want to sit down and talk to them. This is the cross-selling phase. And so during the cross-selling phase, the checklist here, you want to review the client service plans, update those, and identify additional services and products that needed to be discussed with your client during that meeting. You want to make sure that the trusted advisor agrees on the program that has been put together. And when it's done, they can actually help you sell the program to the client. Now, you may come up with a whole list of recommendations. Don't try to sell everything to your client. I recommend come up with 1, maybe 2 key recommendations that need to be actioned now. The rest can be parked and taken care of as the year progresses, or even down the track. And you want to make sure that you establish your client a review time that's locked in the calendar. So when you're meeting with your clients at the beginning of the year, all your key clients should be aware of your 6-step process of how you manage retention, that you're going to meet with them at the renewal phase, you're going to meet with them midterm, and there'll be a review phase if there's any recommendations. And you want to lock those dates in so they're done. And of course, you want to continue to ask for referrals. Okay, the final phase is what I call the client event phase. And this is the phase to where I've cross-sell, I've upsold my client, I got the name of the advisor. Now I want to have some sort of event. This is where I'm also going to obtain referrals. So the client event, you want to lock in a date for your client event for your top clients. This could be a wine tasting, could be a book reading, could be cooking demonstration. I know one that did golfing demonstrations. That they had on their staff a former top amateur golfer who, through family tragedy, wasn't able to turn pro, but this person still played on a scratch handicap. So when they had golf days, which a lot of firms have, they did a golf clinic, and this particular professional was able to show them, their staff was able to show them how to hold the grip, check their clubs, and so forth, as well as doing a normal golf day. Regularly identify clients in your database that have potentially upgraded. So you're doing a client event. You want to look at your client base. Is there anyone potentially that might be a B client that can be an A client? And you want to invite them along. You also want to include your client's trusted advisors to these events. And you want to ask them to bring along a colleague or friend or peer. Those are your referral sources along the way. So client events should be a regular thing. And it's a fantastic way to get referrals, solidify a relationship with your clients, bring their trusted advisors on board. And you do these once a year. Of course, if you have several top clients, you might do several of these a year. But nevertheless, it's great use of your marketing time, your marketing selling within your comfort zone, and your whole staff and team can be involved. Okay, so that's the 6-step model, cross-selling model. I want to talk about some implementation guidelines now, how you actually go about implementing this. You want to look at your client base, and you want to understand what you actually have. And there's 3 types of client bases. There's a volume base, which is really just high volume, sometimes low transaction type of risk. I see a lot of SME brokers, small and medium enterprise type insurance brokers, more uh, small and medium, not enterprise, that have a high volume business. The other one's a cluster. That's more niche marketing, to where you've penetrated certain niche markets. It could be restaurants. It could be aviation. I know one does book retailers. And then there's mix, which is a combination of the two. Now, there's pros and cons of each one. If you have a high volume base, the advantages is that your risk is spread. So if you lose any one client, it's not a disaster. And you probably avoid the peaks and valleys of revenue because there's so many that are in the book. The downside of that is it's hard to manage. You have less contact with each client, and more importantly, you miss being seen as all things, all people. When you have a cluster base, which is more niche focused, you're able to provide better service because you're dealing with clients with the same sort of problems and challenges. It's easier to measure. It's actually on the downside though, greater training is required because you're dealing with very specialized knowledge. So staff need to be trained. It's more expensive to replace staff because they've gained this knowledge, and deadlines can be concentrated. So I know some facilities to where all the risks is due in the same month, and so that can be challenging, stressful. However, it's still cluster base is still worth pursuing. Mixed base is, the advantages is that your risk is spread. They're easy to maintain, and you can be seen as a specialist as well as a generalist. And so that's not a bad mix. The downside of that is it can become routine. You can easily plateau. And I've seen this often to where you build up a business and, it's hard to get motivated. It's hard to get out there and grow it because you gotten used to just doing a couple of challenging risks, a couple of niche markets. And it's also easy to get distracted along the way. But you want to identify the types of base that you have. Most clients that I work with and coach, I try to get them to a cluster mix base. And the reason why, because when I remove them from being a volume base, they're having to work with less labor intensity. So quite often when I'm called into a business, they're volume based. They're working far too hard for generating too little results. Once we start moving to a cluster or mix client base, life becomes much easier for everyone. So one of the things you want to implement, you want to rate yourself across 10 critical areas. There's 10 key areas that you need to really develop a thriving business. We talked about already pre-planning. You want to make sure that you want to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. How effective are you in pre-planning? Your continuation process, midterm discussion, trusted advisor meeting, client review update, and event marketing. How well are you doing those on a 1 to 10 scale, or use a 1 to 5 scale? The type of client base you have, are you happy with that? Management of your mega clients. Mega clients are a subset of your A clients. These are the top 1%. How are you managing your A clients? How are you managing your B clients? Your A clients are your top 5%, and your B clients are your next 15% clients in terms of revenue. So you want to rate yourself a score of 1 to 10 in each of those areas. And those are what I call the 10 critical areas along the way. And so I have seen quite often firms that have some great A and B clients and mega clients. They're lousy at midterm reviews and trusted advisors. And guess what? Those accounts they got in trouble in those accounts. They became targets of other competitors and so forth. But if you're able to rate yourself on each of those areas and just improve by 1% per year in each of those 10 areas, that's a 10% improvement in your business. Over a 5-year period, that's a dramatic increase. In other words, every year you're looking at those 10 critical areas and ask yourself, how can we get just 1% better? 1% better at managing our mega clients, 1% better at handling our continuation process. And that just multiplies over a long period of time. That is how top performers are generating high single and double digit growth year in, year out. They just focus on 1% in each of the key critical areas. So that's how you execute. Now, as far as the help that I can provide you, I'd like to offer you a free sales execution review. And this is completely free. Just drop me an email or the follow-up email you'll receive. But during that, we'll help you identify what objectives you should be focusing on. Secondly, help you compare your capabilities with the best. We'll benchmark your capabilities with the best practices and help you develop a prioritized action execution list that you can focus on along the way. So it's completely free, and everyone that's done it has gotten a lot out of it along the way. So I encourage you to contact me, or either directly or when you receive a follow-up email. When we schedule time, it takes about 30 minutes. Also, my website at corporateeye.com.au or Clifton at cliftonwarren.com or corporateeye.com.au. You're going to find a whole list of resources. There's a newsletter you can sign up for. There's past webinars you can certainly download. There's articles. There's a couple of books you can purchase. I've actually one just released on cross-selling. So free and paid, just go in and help yourself, download it, and use it as freely as you like. This is our last webinar for the year. I'd like to thank you for participating, and look forward to working with you next year. Once again, thanks for participating, and I'll speak to you soon.